Welcome back to This Week in Weed. Let's take a look at our top stories. Investigators at the University of California, Los Angeles examined whether the proliferation of medical marijuana dispensaries is associated with elevated crime rates. Researchers assessed the spatial relationship between density of medical marijuana dispensaries and two types of crime rates, violent crime and property crime, in 95 census tracts in Sacramento, California, during the year 2009. Researchers reported there were no observed cross-sectional associations between the density of medical marijuana dispensaries and either violent or property crime rates in this study. These results suggest that the density of medical marijuana dispensaries may not be associated with crime rates, or that other factors, such as measures dispensaries take to reduce crime, example doormen and video cameras, may increase guardianship such that it deters possible motivated offenders. Authors acknowledged that their findings run contrary to public perceptions and that they conflict with public statements made by the California Police Chiefs Association, which had previously claimed drug dealing, sales to minors, loitering, heavy vehicle and foot traffic in retail areas, increased noise and robberies of customers just outside dispensaries are common ancillary byproducts of medical cannabis operations. The UCLA is not the first study to dispute the allegation that brick-and-mortar dispensaries are adversely associated with crime. A 2011 study of crime rates in Los Angeles, published by the RAND Corporation, similarly concluded, "We found no evidence that medical marijuana dispensaries in general cause crime to rise." However, shortly following its publication, RAND removed the study from its website after their findings were publicly criticized by the Los Angeles City Attorney's Office. Other analyses of criminal statistics in the cities of Denver, Los Angeles, and Colorado Springs have separately disputed the notion that the locations of dispensaries are associated with elevated incidences of criminal activity. Two-thirds of U.S. adults believe that the drug war is failing, and a majority of respondents say that marijuana ought to be legalized, according to a recent Angus Reid public opinion poll of 1,017 Americans. According to the poll, only 10% of respondents believe that the so-called war on drugs has been successful, while 66% deem it a failure. Pollsters also found that 52% of Americans support the legalization of marijuana, versus 44% opposed. Support for marijuana legalization was highest amongst men at 60%, self-identified political independents at 57%, and Democrats at 54%. Women at 45%, respondents over the age of 55 at 48%, and self-identified Republicans at 43% were less supportive of legalization. It is the fourth consecutive survey conducted by Angus Reid to report majority support among Americans for legalizing marijuana. A separate statewide poll of likely Colorado voters, published on Monday by Rasmussen Reports, found that 61% of likely state voters favor legalizing and regulating marijuana like alcohol. Only 27% of respondents opposed the idea. The poll result is a positive sign for proponents of Amendment 64, a statewide ballot initiative that seeks to eliminate civil and criminal penalties for the limited possession and cultivation of cannabis by those aged 21 or older. Colorado voters will decide on this measure in November. New Hampshire State House and Senate lawmakers last week gave final approval to Senate Bill 409, which allows for the personal possession, cultivation, and use of cannabis for therapeutic purposes. More than two-thirds of House lawmakers endorsed the measure, while senators voted 13-9 in favor of the legislation. The Senate vote is 2 votes shy of the necessary two-thirds majority required to override Governor Lynch's veto. Governor Lynch, a Democrat, has voiced his opposition to SB 409 and previously vetoed similar legislation in 2009. In a press release issued by the Marijuana Policy Project immediately following last week's vote, Senator Jim Forsyth, the bill's prime sponsor, said that he would continue lobbying to gain the 2 additional Senate votes necessary to override the governor's anticipated veto. "Most senators now agree," he said. "We have a moral obligation to protect seriously ill patients from being arrested in our state." On Friday, June 1st, Connecticut became the 17th state since 1996 to legalize the limited use of cannabis for therapeutic purposes. It is the 4th New England state to do so, joining Maine, Rhode Island, and Vermont. This week, Governor Chafee signed Rhode Island's decriminalization measure into law. Last week, both the state and General Assembly overwhelmingly approved the bill. The new law reduces possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana by an individual 18 years or older from a criminal misdemeanor to a non-arrestable civil offense, punishable by a $150 fine, no jail time, and no criminal record. The law takes effect on April 1st, 2013. Only several hours after Governor Chafee put his signature on decriminalization in Rhode Island, the New York State Assembly approved of AB 7347, which would amend state law to allow qualified patients to possess up to 2.5 ounces of medical marijuana for therapeutic purposes, by a 90-50 vote. This marks the 3rd time the Assembly has passed such a measure. However, in previous years, similar legislation has stalled in the Senate. That's it for This Week in Weed. Be sure to check back every Thursday for the latest stories in marijuana law reform.